Hi guys, Frankie B from Pros Ascend with a long overdue episode of working with Power Tools. And if you're not up to the info of what we do here, is this is our attempt, low production value or otherwise, to keep members of our community up to date and interested in as to the conversion of Urban Terror on IDTech 3 over to Urban Terror HD on Unreal 4. And, if these are the kind of things that they're interested in as part of a behind-the-scenes kind of idea. Let them know what's going on. And certainly let them know that it is actually being worked on. Okay, so what I like to do from time to time, of course, is particularly when there's been between major version releases of the Unreal 4, to kind of go over, hopefully quickly, some of the improvements that I've seen between one build and the other, by more or less not doing anything major as far as things as lighting and what have you goes. I've done some work on here. I've got rid of the, put in some half-decent mountains in the background. Got rid of the depth of field. I thought that was starting to look a little bit cheesy, too, retro or whatever. I don't like, it's a trick to of the environment to kind of give us a deeper sense of volume of space, but I used it more or less to hide the crappy mountains that I had in the background here. That was part of a mobile asset set, and I was stretching and what have you. So once I put in the better mountains in the background, it just looked like a gimmick more than anything else. So I've just kind of tossed that out as far as something is needed. I also finding it things look better without post-processing. If you can't make it look good stock, post-processing is just kind of a bit of a cheat to make everything else kind of forced to fit the finish kind of deal. You spend the time, make it look right without having to process anything else, then I think anyways that the results will always turn out better, even if you did decide afterwards that you want to post-process stuff. Okay, of note between that stands out right away, boom, instantly caught my attention, is how much better the foliage has become over time since the first release certainly of Unreal 4.0, which of course I was, if you go back a bit, if I still have those videos up for that fact, I was rather critical about how bad the lighting effect was, based on a simple idea that lighting in a video game should be just something that you should arbitrarily be able to throw into the game, and it produces a predictable result with very little need for prompting for different values. And certainly in the area of things like direct light as well as skylight, you should drop them in, and by default it should just work. It should look good. The shadows should look good. They don't have to be spectacular, but you need something to kind of work on as a base, as a working light. So if you, with 4.0, I threw a light into it, I find myself spending hours trying to get it to look exactly what I have now, which I haven't done really anything as far as lighting goes since 4.0. So as time progresses, it just simply got better looking, and I figure, okay, the heck with it, I'm just not good, until we're 10 minutes towards release, then I'll start worrying about lighting effect and so what have you. But what certainly has improved over the time, which was obviously a side problem of the lighting issues that were initially presented, as the improvement in foliage, as in how the light is starting to bounce around in between the leaves, and how the leaves are actually starting to become a little bit more translucent. And there's still more work. It looks fantastic, but it's still not I would have to say not up to what you would call production video quality. I mean, it's superior to so far it's been superior to whatever I've seen as far as say mid-range engines goes, but still a fair amount of work needs to be done as far as making it look real. In other words, if you want to create a real looking environment, it's got foliage, still some work to do. Impressed with is that it's finally, because the back facing what have you is translucent, as the lights now have the opportunity to feed into the bush itself without kind of just sort of being masked or being prevented from penetrating into the bush itself. No matter how thick or bushy it is, it still should have a kind of where you can sit at the back here and you can see whatever is behind it. So this whole thing at one point was just like a big black hole where if a player wanted to, they could jump in the bush and camp in the bush, which was what I was rather concerned about. So that's a huge improvement in that area since the last few upgrades, and I'm quite happy about that. Water and lighting effects, it's actually started sparkling on its own for whatever reason. I don't know. I'm going to have to actually look at the pictures, but it didn't sparkle like this before. Backlighting behind the statues, that was a major issue. To actually force the lighting into it, I actually had to put a point source light with a very large roll off to kind of blend the lighting into the back. It should be in shadow, but it should not look like it's in shadow, if you know what I mean. This kind of, you can see where the line is starting to be drawn between the front and the back as far as shadowing goes right here. So we had this hot and cold, going from a hot shower to a cold pool kind of effect going on. So very much improved and looking way more realistic as far as lighting goes. It'd be nice to see what's going to happen, say, in the next year or so, because it's just each release always something new and improved. Now my main beef is still here, of course, is this disconnect in the ground between the ground and the buildings, which you can see here there's some form of ambient occlusion effect that has taken place that is trying to disconnect the building. Now there's this thing called grounding. Now grounding in a video game means where obviously things have to be done based on using the ground as the reference point. So everything, if you throw a ball in the air, it's going to fall down, so you have to use ground to anything that is connected to it. It always comes back down to this. So my main beef here is these solid lines that are being drawn across that creates a division between the wall surface of the building and the ground that tends to make it look like it's a stenciled edge. It looks like this building here is clipping through the ground, and then it's exactly what it's doing. It's, as you can see, it's clipping through the ground. So how to fix that would, I've tried different types of ideas. Messed around with a few things like per pixel painting on the surface and trying to spill into the building, which requires separate UV maps, and it's messy and would be extremely time consuming. So in 4.9, a feature that I'm looking forward to is the addition of ambient occlusion material masks, which means hopefully that you can create this by using a mask. You can just throw it on here and automatically, hopefully it will automatically sense, just as it does the corners. The corners are fantastic. They work out just almost perfect. They look up here. This is one building clipping into the other, and it's not have that straight line look. It's slight, but it's wavy, and it doesn't look like it's somebody just took a pencil and painted a line. And the little bit of darkness that's applied to it doesn't do much harm at all. But with the hopefully with the ambient occlusion mask material, that will be able to correct between this disconnect between the ground and, of course, the building. Okay, so I quickly run through that. Another thing that's hugely improved is normal map seems to be doing the thing that a normal map should be doing. As this ivy here, all it is just a simple texture. A couple of opacity maps, slight opacity translucent maps. There's two objects here, one layered on top of the other. One is just more behind it is more the branches and what have you, and the one on top of it is the leaves and so forth. So it creates kind of a parallax type of effect between the two. But the normal map seems to be pushing the leaves out a little bit more, so it actually does, from an angle, look like it's extruding from the wall. So once again, one of those things that you just put it in, leave it alone, and then wait and see what happens, kind of deal. I kind of joked once that you should just put a simple six-sided brush into the environment, leave it alone, and then you come back and you'll have a fully formed environment ready to rock and roll. Okay, so let's get on to probably the cool stuff. Anyways, we did manage to get some work done as far as player models and animations and weapons and this and that and go. So we'll just kind of jump in. Things are going to get a little bit noisy. This is actually not as loud as you think it is. So if you're actually in the game, I'm wearing headphones and screaming over a microphone, and and it's hard to kind of keep chew gum and talk at the same time kind of thing. But we'll go into a little bit more of a quieter area. I don't think there is. There's always some kind of environmental noise going on. But anyways, as you can see, we have a weapon hooked up that actually fires. And we have a couple of other weapons hooked up. We'll go through them one at a time. Same sound at the moment. And we'll start with this guy here, which is the M16, which of course S-Machine made way back when we had Urban Terror running on a modified version of the EdTech 3 referred to as the FS Tech 1 engine, which could maintain a substantially high, lot more numbers of polygons, what have you, in detail and so forth. This came out basically stock from that from that development pile directly into Urban Terror HD for our purposes, and then fitted it up. And of course, it looks actually pretty darn good with just whatever it is that it was assigned as being an FS Tech 1 asset, with a little bit of material and what have you. So very little work that needs to be brush this up and bring it up to date, and a fair number of weapons are the same as that. But we kind of just stuck with 3 at the moment because it's a little bit of a pain. We have about 24, so it's a bit of a pain to have to cycle through all of them just to get to the one you want. Okay, so the LR, of course, is done by Mr. Bean, or not Mr. Bean. Sorry, yeah, actually, what am I saying? Yeah, the LR was done by Mr. Bean. Once again, this is just a drag and drop from the old FS Tech 1 engine, dropped into Urban Terror HD under Unreal 4, and it looks pretty darn good. Once again, few areas that need a little bit more detail to make it look round. That's the thing, is if you build anything for Unreal 4, poly count doesn't really matter as much as it used to, so whatever's supposed to look round, make it look round. You don't need to put an 8-sided drum in versus a 24-sided drum to make it look round. Make it look what it's supposed to, and the engine can handle that kind of information quite easily without putting up a sweat. You start getting into about say 1 million polygons, then you might be talking about a little bit of a rough time. Okay, so anyways, that brings us to the this is a purchased asset. We purchased this through the Epic store to use it as more of a base to kind of proof out everything else that's going to be attached to as far as weapons being introduced on an ongoing basis, and use this as the starting point as being a completed weapon. The M4A1 Pro is complete as far as detailing work, as any kind of detailing work that needs to be done. It has it has the proper types of metal masks and what have you. So it's a benchmark that we want to shoot for as far as the look of the weapon goes, as well as have the sound and the hands and everything is just based off of this one frame, that this one selection that we have as a starting point. The glass, as you can see, has an environmental effect. It's not really a mirror, so you can't use it to see who's behind you, which of course was one of the first things that I checked on. When you can use this as a mirror, and you can see somebody sneaking up on you and ready to give you the knife, and you just it's a little bit. I can see everybody only using this weapon for this feature, but the idea behind feature editions too, as well, is how easy it is to make a weapon in component form. So you can use a frame or a rail system or a set of grips, or front sights, back sights, or optics, or whatever, from quite easily from one weapon to the other once you start breaking it down. So that leaves the possibility open, of course, for customization of any kind of weapon that we want to make as a future edition. Just because you're bored, let's make a weapon on a Sunday and release it on a Monday kind of thing. Once again, stock firing sound, but if you're wearing headphones, I really like that kaboom at the end of it. It's pretty heavy. And of course, there's a full set of animations as far as basic usability goes. The reload's kind of crazy. Doesn't even cock the weapon. So very, 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 very no fancy bells or whistles there. Okay, so I think that kind of covers what we got so far as weapons going in, as well as what the expected overall quality is going to be. You know, if you're what you're looking at is probably about as far as we would want to go. We could certainly put a lot more into it so it actually looks real, but then that's a change of everything. So stylization is still probably very much a key of the visual effects versus trying to jump over top of the uncanny valley into a more realistic type of shooter. We've never been you know, it's fun over realism anyway. So who knows what ultimately these are going to look like in the end, with some fun detailing added to it. Okay, so also. I can kind of hear in the background, oh, we're going to have optics? Well, no, not really. Probably if this, I'm not even sure if this particular weapon is going to make it into the final loadout. But if it does, it's going to have some, say degree of modification as to what we're going to be doing with all the other weapons anyway. So, a good example is, we can take any weapon that we want, cut it into parts, as I mentioned about how we can make new weapons based on components, and then just maybe add whatever down the road, various different add-on items that are either usable, certainly a silencer has to be usable, a laser has to be usable, or anything that is attached to the weapon, some degree of functionality. You know, we're talking like, you know, maybe a flashlight attachment to it, but it only behaves as a flashlight. It's not like an added where you're going to be blinding guys halfway across the map with some silly gizmo widget. But, you know, some players, they just kind of like things slimmed down, get to the basics, and then there's guys like me that they want to be running around with this big tower of stuff, sort of one thing piled on top of it that looks like a big, huge cannon in your hands kind of thing. And of course, it has to go boom. Just to kind of put it out there, I like the DE, the Desert Eagle, only because it goes boom. Okay, so enough of that. Let's go on to onto third person here. This is actually, let's go back. Movement. Okay, to be honest, I can't move more than darn in Urban Terror HD. I'm a stealth player. You know, this is about as fast as I'm happy with moving. You know, finding cover, moving through cover and stuff like that. Splinter Cell is my kind of game. You know, or Tomb Raider. You know, games that you take your time and you walk around. You can kind of explore things rather than moving quickly. One of the things I certainly can't do with any sense of style and grace is jumping, but that's one of the things I noticed right away. That is a huge improvement. Is in HD I can jump. You know. Now it doesn't look like much, but trust me, if you know me, this is huge. I couldn't even get off a wall. I'd look like I'm dry humping it or something like that. I'm just kind of trying to jump off the wall. I can actually move at angles and as well as get some speed out of this thing. Uncontrollable speed, but I can get up to about 30 kilometers an hour, I think so. And that's before even getting into the power sliding. And you know, as somebody who can't do that stuff, I find it a lot more easier to do and a lot more reactive in HD than I found it in 4.2. So anybody that knows how to jump to begin with, they're gonna, boy, I can only imagine the kind of frag videos that are going to come out of this thing, because it's just, I mean, the fact that I can even jump off a wall, period, says a lot about the redesign in this area. Okay, so anyways, getting back to where we were kind of peeking at our third player model. Yeah, okay, this is probably not a player model that you actually see in the game. We're kind of in the dressing stage right now, and I actually need to get actually put a player model. The overall framework though is what it's going to look like. So it might not be this player model, but overall, this is what the characters are going to look like. So once again, probably not the best type of. Let's see if we can blow that up a bit. There. better look of how it's moving. So this is the basic run. Lousy camera work, I know. Should be doing this in a freestyle environment. Yeah, you know, maybe we'll do that. Well, instead of messing around here, we'll get out of this. Oh boy. Come on, there we go. And we'll just do a new level. So you don't have to let me scream over top. Okay, so let's see what we got here. That's definitely better. Let's bring that little basic floor up size so we're not running off of it, which I tend to do a lot. Hit the play button. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is our base Sarah model. Sarah is usually the code word for meaning that this is our alpha design / player model that we're going to be adding all our stuff on top of, and build from there. And all the animations for the characters, of course, using Unreal 4 will be the same and identical to this. I'm not going to show you any jumping right now because it's in some need of some work, and as I said, I'm not a very good jumper, so it wouldn't be a very good demonstration of the current animations onto it. But as you can see, there's definitely a much more robust flow, smooth as glass. The head tends to stay the head itself is been done and animated, so it's always on the vertical, as in being on 0, 0 position relative to whatever crosshead you're pointing at the time. Of course, there are some slight variations, but everything once again is moving left, right, crouch, crawl, crawl. We don't have crawl. Okay, we're not going to have crawling. Okay, so everything is done on the vertical, and then of course whatever we want to do as far as swinging that big butt around, you know, it's not going to, it shouldn't be too let's say distracting. Well, it depends again. Okay, anyways, yeah. So anyways, I think that should fill it enough for this time slot. There's a lot more coming and a lot more being done. And of course, we'll show that stuff off when we get there. But hopefully this is enough to keep you guys busy for a while as far as the rumor mill goes. So we'll finish off. Okay, see ya. Bye.